In November 2024, North Korea media released videos of this intercontinental ballistic missile test. In May 2025, North Korea fired more ICBMs in an exercise and stressed that their nuclear forces are ready to fight. In February 2026, North Korea staged a display of multiple rocket launchers as leader Kim Jong-un pledged to develop stronger ICBMs. As the Iran war rages, Kim said his country would permanently strengthen its nuclear forces and treat South Korea as its most hostile state. All this flexing is making South Korea nervous. Public support for a domestic nuclear program is growing in response to developments in the North. 10 years ago, calling for South Korean nuclear weapons was a fringe idea. Today, it has become a mainstream discussion. Recent polls show that 7 out of 10 South Koreans support developing their own nuclear weapons.
The US provides a nuclear umbrella to South Korea, and this is a cornerstone of their defense alliance. So why are some South Koreans increasingly losing faith in this arrangement?
The South Koreans have always been worried about abandonment by the United States. But the US has always done many things to reassure the South Koreans. Even today, the United States has, I think, 25,000 troops on the ground. So any war on the peninsula will involve the United States. That ensures that the US will defend South Korea. But a nuclear umbrella and a nuclear covering of the South now is far less likely. We have a president who is openly talking about abrogating alliances, and people have to take that seriously. So in many ways, what Trump has done is raise the instability or the uncertainty about what the US would do in any kind of circumstances.
The ambiguity of US foreign policy towards South Korea has contributed to this unease. President Trump had asked Seoul to increase defense spending to reduce the financial burden on America. On the trade front, Trump's tariffs have also hit South Korean companies. As South Korea pledged larger investments, hundreds of federal agents descended on a Hyundai factory in Georgia, USA, producing electric vehicles. The agents detained 475 people, most of them South Korean nationals. The workers described being chained, shackled, and then held in a cold room before being sent back to South Korea. These workers were mainly highly skilled professionals, including technicians, engineers, and IT specialists brought to Georgia to install specialized equipment for the battery production line. Hyundai and the workers said they were in the US on short-term visas and were not illegals. These events sparked outrage in Seoul.
Georgia and the arrests by ICE of the South Koreans who were legally there was awful. But it was the most vivid element of instability, but it's not by any means the only one that's causing South Koreans to rethink how they deal with the US.
When President Trump visited South Korea in October 2025, he was honored with South Korea's highest award and presented a gold-crowned replica representing peace on the Korean peninsula. Ahead of this meeting, South Korea pledged to invest $350 billion in the United States in exchange for lower tariffs on South Korean exports. Many South Koreans did not agree with this trade deal.
저희는 트럼프의 관세 요구가 너무 약탈적이라고 생각해서 집회에 오게 됐는데요. 트럼프가 요구하는 게 너무 과하다고 생각을 합니다. 3,500억 달러라는 게 우리 한국에 우리 국민들에게는 엄청 큰 돈인데 이거를 심지어 합방에 그리고 이 어마어마한 돈을 현금으로 달라는 것은 너무 약탈적이고 우리나라를 식민지로 여기고 있는 행위라고 생각을 해서 여기까지 와서 반대를 하고 있습니다.
like many countries, what the South Koreans have been trying to do with Trump has been to appeal to his ego, to what they know Trump likes. He loves flattery, he loves shiny things. So giving him the crown was meant to be this bribe, whatever you want to call it, right? To make him feel really good. And in many ways, it seemed to work. The South Koreans got a reduction on some of the tariffs. They got an agreement on the $350 billion they were supposed to invest. And so the South Koreans thought that everything was going fine. And then just a couple weeks ago, Trump turned around and said it wasn't happening fast enough. He's going to raise the tariffs. So in many ways, I think the South Koreans feel you can't make a deal with Trump and have it be reliable. And that raises the stakes on all aspects of the alliance.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung followed the example of leaders from Canada, Ireland, Finland, and the UK, and also visited Beijing. President Lee and Xi signed 15 memorandums of understanding, or MOUs, covering science, technology, transportation, and trade. This, along with business deals signed by members of a large Korean business delegation who accompanied President Lee on his visit. Notably, both countries agreed to conclude negotiations on the investment and services tranche of a full Korea-China free trade agreement within the year.
It's not a pivot to China, and that's only because every South Korean president wants good relations with China. That being said, Lee's visit was the first one in, I think, 7 years. He was the first president in, I think, 7 years to go visit China. It was, by all accounts, a very successful visit. It was clearly focused on economics. They had massive meetings with 27 or 28 South Korean CEOs, along with Chinese. It was focused on trade and investment and sort of restarting the China-Korea relationship, which had undergone some strains in the last 5 years or so.
What kind of outstanding issues do you think there are between China and South Korea that prevents the two countries from engaging in deeper cooperation?
The biggest obstacle, of course, is North Korea. China remains a very strong supporter of North Korea. There are some residual maritime disputes over the West Sea. These haven't ever blossomed to be as big as the disputes in the South China Seas, but they are there. And then, of course, the U.S. Air defense batteries that China really didn't like that were put there in 2016. They've been there for 10 years. China, the U.S., and South Korea have figured out how to live with the THAAD batteries. But those are enduring thorns in the side of the Sino-Korean relationship.
Faced with concerns about both the superpowers, South Korean leaders have opted to be pragmatic.
South Korea-Japan relations have often been very rocky, and never is this more true when there is a relatively right-leaning leader in Japan and a left-leaning leader in Korea. Nevertheless, both President Lee and Prime Minister Takaichi have decided that this ROK-Japan relationship is critical to both of their security and resilience, again, including in a world in which the United States is unpredictable. So despite the fact that the Progressive Party in Korea has traditionally been a bit more anti-Japan, and his voters might not in the past have supported this, not only did you see President Lee follow his trip to China with a trip to Japan, but you saw him put on a costume and perform K-pop Demon Hunter songs in a drum solo with Prime Minister Takaichi, which candidly, none of us who've worked on this relationship could have possibly expected even a few months ago.
Seoul is also closely watching developments in Iran. With U.S. missiles and missile interceptor inventories being stretched, what does it mean for any potential contingencies in East Asia? As U.S. power extends in the Western Hemisphere and the Middle East, what is there left for Asia?
It's the case that just 10 days of the war with Iran has resulted in incredible expenditure of munitions that would potentially be necessary to fight a contingency in the Indo-Pacific. And this comes at a time when the United States inventories were already stretched thin, particularly after supporting years of war in Ukraine. So that's a real concern. Additionally, the posture vis-a-vis the Middle East currently has the United States with 2 full carrier strike groups in the Middle East. And I would imagine that at least one is going to be there for some time to come. Even if this war winds down relatively quickly, there are likely to be continued reprisals from Iran, and the United States and Israel potentially feeling that they have to take on additional missions to secure whatever tenuous peace might come next. So I do think it is right for Indo-Pacific partners to worry that not only may American attention, but resources be sucked into the Middle East for not just a few more weeks, but months or even years as a result of this operation.
Trump's call for allies to help secure the Straits of Hormuz was also denounced by protesters in Seoul.
트럼프 행정부는 동맹이라는 허울 좋은 명분 아래 우리 군을 호르무즈 해협이라는 사지로 내몰고자 노골적으로 압박하고 있습니다. 이것은 명백한 주권 침해이자 대한민국 청년들을 미국의 총알바지 용병으로 취급하는 모욕적 처사입니다. 우리는 결단코 미국의 불법적 침략 전쟁에 우리 청년들을 보낼 수 없습니다.